Hello, public opinion aficionados, and welcome to Rasmussen Reports Reality Check. I'm the head pollster, Mark Mitchell, and we have a heck of a reality check tonight because there is a brand new lie out there, a brand new media psychological operation. We thought it was all done. But tonight, I'm going to use polling, and not even just my own polling. I'm going to use polling to once again debunk the mainstream media. But let's talk about this particular new lie. Here we have our friend Harry Enton from CNN. Once again, there's ups and there's downs. He says he has good Trump news, he has bad Trump news, and now we're talking about bad Trump news.
Walk us through how Americans are feeling about President Trump as we're now a month into his second term.
Yeah, it's been a month. It's flown by or taken forever, depending on who you ask. But either way, let's take a look at Trump's numbers right now. This is his net approval rating. These are polls, 4 of them released over the last week. And you might notice there's a lot of red on the screen. And
check the polls out. CNN, Gallup, Ipsos, Quinnipiac. Gallup's the credibility there. But Gallup is a USAID money enjoyer, I hate to say, and I'm not a fan of their most recent poll.
And a lot of negatives. Trump is underwater in all these polls. His net approval rating, look at this, -5 points in the CNN poll, -6 points in Gallup, -7 points in Ipsos, -4 points in Quinnipiac, negative, and then negative. He is underwater in all of these polls. As I said earlier this week, he's a little bit like the Little Mermaid, underwater.
Interesting. That doesn't feel to me like what I see around myself on Twitter and the news. It's not what I think I see. This is cognitive dissonance. Doesn't make sense. Here we had CNN just a few weeks ago talk about how Donald Trump came in on absolutely soaring approval rating, and here we are flashing red. It's kind of emboldened some people. It's emboldened some talking heads. Maybe not politicians, but old hats like our friend, the mouth of the South, James Carville, who also has some stuff to say for us.
I believe that this administration, in less than 30 days, in the midst of a massive collapse, and particularly a collapse in public opinion. Debunk at Harvard, who's very good. I used to think
he's drooling again. He's drooling. Sorry, I didn't even catch that because I'm too busy staring at the drool. Some pollster that I've never heard of.
Once I saw a Harvard Youth poll, I discounted it. I've come to say it's a pretty damn good poll. Pretty good guy.
Oh.
He's gone from 53 approval to under 30 to 39. That's a collapse.
Oh,
and all
39.
Trump's
at 39.
I use is Pickett is 500 yards from the stone wall. Hold your fire. It's going to be easy pickings here in 6 weeks.
I love the Confederacy reference. 39% approval. Absolute collapse. That's what we're going to debunk. Because I'm not seeing it, folks. I am not seeing it at all. Let's go to Real Clear Politics. Forget Rasmussen Reports. Let's just take a look at this. What do we got? 1.8 net Trump, 1.8, 2 points. 49% approve, 47.5% disapprove. Harvard Harris, wow, has Trump net +9. I don't think we've seen that yet. That's a good pollster. Rasmussen Reports, we're at +2 today. I'll show you the snapshot. I think it's noise, whatever. 50% approve, 48% disapprove. Economist, which usually left of us, has Trump at net +3, but also at a 50%, 47% disapprove. So we're pretty close with them. Emerson, also usually about a point left of us. Trump net +6. Interesting. Now they're polling registered voters. Maybe those people are a little bit more politically disconnected. Ipsos has Trump underwater 3 points. I'm seeing 48 though. I'm seeing 48%. I'm not seeing a 39. Quinnipiac, the worst one here, 45%. Their approval ratings always underestimate. They actually had Biden down in the low 30s, I think 33%. I never saw a number like that. I think the lowest I ever had Biden was 37%. So they're showing Trump at 45. Again, they've had Biden in the low 30s. CNN, -8. That's the worst one here. The same CNN pushing that flashing red Trump headline, showing you all of those 4 negative numbers. They're the lowest result here. Survey USA, Trump +6. Gallup, I don't really understand this one. I really don't. They poll on approval a lot less than they did before. Maybe they just, lost touch. I don't know. We're the only people in the field right now polling Trump approval every night. I'll say it over and over again. All of these people do monthlies. Trafalgar, Trump +9. So I'm like in the middle of the pack. In fact, I'm exactly at where the aggregate is right now. Now, some of this is Trafalgar's looking, well, that's almost 2 weeks ago. And CBS News, there's that 53%. There's that 53%. They put the same number out that I did. So I am not seeing a 39. I'm not seeing a 39. I'm seeing an average Trump approval of 49%. And we're going to put that into context. We're going to look at a lot of approval numbers to see what it means. And I think what we'll find is it might not be super great, but it's also not bad at all. And we've actually been talking about tracking a different number, and there's a record setter tonight. But just in case, let's not look at Real Clear Politics, who's straight down the middle. Let's look at the scumbags over at 538 and see what they have. Trump approval, according to 538, approved 48%. That's only 1 point worse than Real Clear Politics. In fact, 538, I think across all the swing states was about 1.1 and change. Maybe it was like 1.1, 1.2 points left of Real Clear Politics. So they're doing their thing. They took Trump from a net 1.8 to a net positive 0.7. So Real Clear Politics does a straight average. 538 does millions of dollars of data collection, aggregation, adjustment, stochastic models, Monte Carlos, all this other garbage, and it inserts 1 point of leftward bias. It always has. It always will. But look at the polls. 50%. 43% is the worst. 48, 50, 48, 47, 55, 52, 53. Wow, RMG. RMG's got Trump at 55. That's strong. Interesting. Pretty sure they had Harris +5 back in August, though. Trafalgar 54. Big numbers. Big numbers. So let's see where Rasmussen's at today. Let's take a look. Rasmussen reports daily presidential tracking poll for Monday shows that 50% of U.S. likely voters approve of President Donald Trump's job performance, 48% disapprove. Here's the chart. We've had an ebb and flow. I've said it a whole bunch of times. I think we're going to average out of about a 52, 53. We had we poll 5 overnights in a row and average them, and there's 2 low numbers in there. So one of them is probably going to drop off soon. Donald Trump's approval index is really strong. Joe Biden averaged low 20s, low negative 20s. He got down to, he spent a lot of his term at low high 20s, and he even hit, I think the highest was negative 32%. That means that 32% more people strongly disapprove of Joe Biden than strongly approved. But here with Trump, it's basically even. There's just as many Trump lovers as Trump haters. And that's pretty crazy for a Russian dictator or whatever the latest charges are. But let's look at the platinum numbers and the snapshot. Get a little look at the demographics. 50% approve, 48% disapprove. Hold on to this thought, though. 47% right track in the 5 days. The last 5 overnights, an average. But we actually have a record setter there. 63% of Republican voters strongly approve of Trump, 78% total. So that ticked down a little bit. I think the highest we saw was 81. So there's a little bit of a sugar high wearing off for Republicans. And Democrats actually were at 30 for a while. They're going to get in the high teens. Democrats will drive Trump's approval lower, maybe in the high 40s. Maybe we'll see 49. I don't know. But independent approval of Donald Trump is still pretty high, 50% to 47% net +3. Men and women are starting to separate more, but white and black voters are getting closer together. Now, maybe I have more liberal white voters and more conservative black voters. That's not what I'm keying my polls to. It's just really impossible unless we're really digging into the numbers in the state poll. But this isn't astounding. The fact that the racial signal is almost zero. It's almost zero. And this tells me I think people are paying attention. Something new has happened because I'll tell you, black approval of Biden was always positive, or always actually it was roughly 60% for most of the term. They really did like Biden. And, the numbers are ticking up for Trump too. And Hispanic and other race voters, still the highest approving of Donald Trump. Really profound. But let's look at some charts. See if this works out. There we go. Boom. Try and zoom in. So I've been busy today producing this. Let's get it bigger. Producing this. This is Trump first term, Biden, and then Trump second term overlaid. So we're finally adding new data to this chart. And we'll zoom in on Trump's recent performance in his new term. But I wanted to show everybody the context we're dealing with. Like, this is the history of approval here. This is what is like theoretically possible from a positive and negative perspective. These are 10 period moving averages to smooth everything out. And Trump entered office. He actually, his 10 period moving average actually got up to 55%. He had a 59% overnight. Really strong. That was in a more innocent time. Certainly, people gave new president the more benefit of the doubt. And then the Russian collusion hoax just utterly destroyed. This is a collapse. This is what you call a collapse. And it's not even as fast as James Carville is projecting here. But in the first 6 months of his first term, Donald Trump went from a 55% to a 40%. He lost 15 points of approval rating, but then he clawed it back. Then people sort of saw through the lies. And, Rachel Maddow was hammering every night about tax returns and about all of the stuff that was going to get released. And it didn't really do anything. They, actually kind of early, they sort of blew their hand. And Trump oscillated around 47% approval, except for this period here, which is COVID. COVID gave Trump a blow to his approval. And then this period here, Trump actually, we were coming out of COVID. Things were looking good. This was campaign season. Trump approval was high. He was doing all those rallies. And then Biden won. And his approval plummets. And then it actually kind of picked back up after January 6th, believe it or not. Biden had the same kind of thing, but he benefited. He came into office with the most votes in history. And at the time, the lowest presidential approval. And based on Trump's new numbers this term, I can tell you that Biden is keeping that trend. Lowest beginning presidential approval of any president we polled. Although he did have this period here. And I don't think he should be given credit for this. This is like when Phil Murphy finally decided to let people in New Jersey go out without masks and businesses were opening back up. There really was a relatively euphoric period. Everybody was looking forward to actually going to the beach and being outside. And then Afghanistan happened, and the rest is history. This is like FJB and the prices and all this other stuff. And then just, he had a little bit of pickup after the Supreme Court ruling, the 2022 elections. And then he finished a very middling president, 44% approval, where Donald Trump was about 49%. So he finished about 5 points. I actually did a chart of cumulative Trump and Biden approval, where I compared the cumulative difference between the two of them. And Trump was exactly 5 points higher than Biden. So if you add up all of Trump's approvals, add up all of Biden's approvals, and then divide them by the total, it's 5 points. I'll show that sometime. But let's zoom in a little bit. And you can see right now Donald Trump's doing better than Biden by a little bit. But, the adults were back in charge. And Donald Trump's doing better than that. So that is good, but not nearly as good as 2016. And again, it comes down to that loss of innocence, the political divisiveness that we're going to explore in more detail tonight. You can see where this chart's going, though. You know, Donald Trump entered office the first time, and he was doing his like first 100-day shtick. He was getting some wins. The press was just hammering him, just absolutely hammering him. And he was roughly at 46%. So what I think we'll get is something along the lines of 48 to 49%. I think it's almost completed its fall. This is, you know, the inaugural honeymoon wearing off, and he'll be at, I think, where he was the whole back half of his first term, 48, 49%. And he's just going to stay there no matter what they do. And that's going to cause them a lot of heartache and desperation. But here's the good news. Here's why I don't think that approval even matters all that much. Because we finally have it. We finally have the record breaker in all of Rasmussen Report's polling history. Right direction hit a record high of 48%. I think we have four overnights total in all of our polling history where right direction has exceeded wrong track. This is a measure of happiness, satisfaction in leadership. And in 19 years, we've never seen the number 48% saved down in one of our weekly articles, fed into our data set, put up on our chart, 48%, never higher. We'll look at the crosstabs quick, and we're going to see some cool stuff here. 18 to 39-year-old right direction, 50%, the highest of any age. Only 44% of 18 to 39-year-olds say the country is on the wrong track. So all that garbage about, Elon plundering the treasury or, stealing votes, all this stuff that's going on in Reddit, it's not breaking through. It's not breaking through to the 18 to 39-year-old masses. All that stuff's like relegated to the echo chambers. And what's crazy, look at this. Maybe we got a whole lot of white affluent liberals here, but fewer white voters say the country is on the right direction than black and Hispanic voters. That's pretty crazy. 48% of black voters, 53% of Hispanic voters, 56% of other race voters, so pretty much everybody but white voters, is at a record high. And that's because this is a working class populist revolution. The government grifted too close to the sun. They stole too much money. They oppressed everybody. And now people are pretty appalled by what they're finding. We're going to see some proof of that. Only 71% of Republicans is kind of weird. Independents are split 45 to 48. Independents are always tougher to please. They really are. For most of Biden's term, independents were, I think, in the mid to high 20s for right direction. And this is absolutely astounding, the change that's happened in just a very short period of time. And here is our chart. So I updated this. I added more data. This goes back to every single data point in all of Rasmussen Report's polling, going all the way back to 2006. Right direction on the bottom in blue, wrong track on the top in red. And as you can see, the country has always been on the wrong track. Always been on the wrong track. And what's fascinating, since Bush, 2006, the tail end of Bush, listen, that was a horrible time. Everybody was getting tired of the war in the Middle East. Bush was an absolute clown. It was not a good time in America. And right track got down to 10%. But what you can see is that Obama came in and it only got up to 40. It only got up to 40%. And wrong track only got down to 55. And that was, that was very fleeting. Under Obama, it got worse and worse. Now, here's the summer of 2011. That was the sovereign debt crisis. And then things got better again with Obama's, he was coming in on the great financial crisis. But then there was a little bit of a economic recovery, a new Obama election, and it still only got up to 42, 43, and wrong track did not get to 50%. What happens? Trump gets elected in 2016. Boom. For the first time in our polling, right direction equaled wrong track at 47%. 47%. That was before this data point. That was the highest it's ever been, and the only time that it was ever at parity. And you'll notice here, until COVID, Donald Trump structurally hit higher right direction than Obama or Bush by far. Really crazy. And what happened when Biden got in? Biden came in on a much lower right track number, from 47 down to a peak of 42, I think, 42. And it quickly disappeared. And for his term, he spent most of right track at about 32%. 32%, not great. Pretty bad, but also interestingly higher on average than most of Obama's term. So if you'll notice, everything's kind of converging except for it blowing back out a little bit under Biden. And this is kind of fascinating because things are objectively worse now than they were. Really, well, there was a great financial crisis, but still, the fact that under Biden, right direction was higher than the tail end of Obama is pretty incredible, because everybody says that compared to Obama, Biden is a much worse president. We've polled on that a bunch of times. And some of this has to do, I think, with a younger electorate and also an increase in insanity, increase in people being fed, cultish party lines, committing to the cult, voting for their ham sandwich. But things are happy now. 48%, this blue line shows it. It's higher than any other time. It's just crazy. And it's only the second time that wrong track dipped below 50%. It's at 47% as of Monday, as of Monday's crosstabs. Really, really astounding. So people are happy. We've tried to measure a couple of different ways to show it's not all just happiness. It's a complex feeling. There's some complexity to what they're feeling right now. But here's one measure. Here is one measure. Try to make this a little bigger. More than a third of voters favor altering the Constitution to allow President Donald Trump to run for re-election again, and a majority think he could win in 2028. Only us will poll on that. This is the only place you're going to see that. And I think we should be applauded for asking the questions that matter. If you like that somebody's out there asking us, please, on YouTube, click like or subscribe, click the bell for notifications, or go to Twitter, follow us at Rasmussen_poll, or even sign up for a newsletter on RasmussenReports.com. It's free. Now, you might not like this idea. There are people that are more strict constitutionalists than others. The Constitution can always be amended. And maybe people will say, well, if we amended it, it would just allow Obama to run for a third term. And yeah, that is true. And then other people also ascribe to the Steve Bannon school of Trump 2028, in that it only limits consecutive terms. And Donald Trump has not served 2 consecutive terms. I'm not a constitutional lawyer. Maybe we'll get Ron on someday. But I'm not proposing that this happen. I don't think it's a good idea. I just wanted to know if voters think it's a good idea. And a surprising number of them did. For how revered the Constitution is, 35%. At least some would approve of this idea, repealing the 22nd Amendment to let the president serve for more than 2 terms. And 19% strongly approve. Only 48% strongly disapprove. Yeah, that is enough to get me raked over the coals. But they already ignore me. Everybody except for what's great is the people that don't ignore Rasmussen are all getting fired right now. Joy Reid had a whole attack piece on us, and now she's crying salty tears. Lost her show that nobody watched. I think more people watch me than Joy Reid, or they will soon. But the number that's important here is Republicans, because 52% of Republicans at least somewhat approve of of the 22nd Amendment being repealed, so Donald Trump can run again. 26% strongly, only 31% strongly disapprove. And Democrats are in the 20s. Independents are almost at 30%. So it's really a Republican signal, a vote that, yeah, we've pretty much found our man. And maybe we should amend the Constitution to let him run again. And what's crazy is, if the 22nd Amendment were to be repealed, how likely is it that President Donald Trump would be reelected to a third term? And 53% say likely, 32% very. And that number kind of matches his approval rating. So people are voting along approval lines, but look at the not likelies. 16% not very, 19% not at all. So what's that number? 35%. Almost 20 points. By almost a 20-point margin, voters say that it would be likely, as opposed to not likely, that Donald Trump would win again in 2028 at the tender age of 80, whatever, 2 or 3. And Republicans, 48% very, 23% somewhat, 71%, 71% to 25%, and even a majority of independents say it's likely. If you've learned something, please follow us at RasmussenReports.com, Rasmussen_poll at Twitter. Follow us on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Mark_R_Mitchell at Twitter. And thanks for watching.